Hello, welcome back to the Pod Book. So, in the books that I wrote before I developed this new philosophy, I would talk about the one that has become all. It's a very old idea in mystical philosophy, and an attractive one, I think. But looking back, I wonder what I meant by the one, because I would talk about it in mythological ways, that the one had intentions, it wanted to know itself, and therefore it manifested the universe. For example, it was conscious. Really, it was God. What it certainly wasn't was one. It had lots and lots and lots of qualities, whereas one is formless. One has one quality, and that's the quality of existing, of being. So when I'm conscious of the oneness of all right now, it has no quality other than being. And everything has that quality of being because everything is the one differentiated into these different qualities. So in this new philosophy, I've been insisting that the one is simply one. It's not one something. It's just one. It exists. It is the formless that is being differentiated in this process of evolution into everything. It's the simplest thing you can possibly imagine. That's the source, or that's the ground of existence. So in this chapter, I want to explain how I've come to understand that. And I'm going to suggest that the reason the one can only be understood as one, not as one something, is because the fundamental ontological basement, as the physicist Paul Davies calls it, the ontological basement of existence, of the universe, is something which we can only understand with mathematics. It's not mathematics. It's a level of information which we understand with the language we've developed called mathematics and geometry. And that comes very much from the idea in physics, which I'll explore in later chapters, where physicists have for some time now gone, oh look, the fundamentals of reality is not matter. Matter's an emergent form of information. And I define information as the differentiation of the one. So that information informs the formless to create this. Now, I'm going to suggest the foundational level of emergence is what we study with maths. That's like the machine code of the universe, if we use that analogy. But you don't need any maths to understand what I'm going to say. None at all. And I am aware, and the reason I say that is that many, many people don't like maths. And I think that's because it's so far away from the human level. It's as far away as you can get from the human level. And so it feels cold and it lacks life for many people. But it's become all of this, I want to suggest. So suggesting that the ground is something we understand with maths, a fundamental level of information, doesn't have to be cold any more than when you listen to an MP3 playing. It doesn't ruin the experience of the music to know that it's digital information. The two sit together, and that's the nature of emergence in the universe. It is both this glorious human experience of beauty and love and all the things that make life rich and warm, and at its very, very, very simplest basics, it's informational relationships we can only study with the language of mathematics. And for some people, mathematics is beautiful, of course. I think the great mathematicians are practicing a type of psi sensing, where they're sensing a level of reality, and there's a wonder there at the beauty and the harmony and the way things relate. I'm thinking particularly of a very famous Indian mathematician, Ramanujan, who would come up with formulas, mathematical formulas, in dreams. Or once, I believe he said that it had been written on his tongue by the Indian goddess in a dream. And he had no idea how to prove that these equations were right. He just knew they were. And nearly always they were. So, but you don't have to feel like that. Just come with me with some basic ideas about the nature of reality. We're not going to be studying mathematics itself. So what I'm suggesting is, look, there's an old idea, the one is two. You get it in the Chinese philosophy of yin and yang. You get it in Pythagorean philosophy. You get it in Kabbalah. It's an old idea. And the one as two is the bit. One bit is this or that in computer science or informational theory generally. And the idea we're exploring here is, well, everything is that simplest piece of information become richer and richer and richer. And that's a process of emergence. Now, it's not a process of temporal emergence. It's not like, well, how long does it take the one to be two? Or how long does it take two to be three, or three to be four? But you can see it's emergent, where emergence means you can't have the new thing without the old thing. It builds. So 3 builds on 2, 4 builds on 3. You can't have a square until you've got a line. You can't have a cube until you've got a square. These informational relationships, which we study and try and understand with our evolving mathematical knowledge, are the beginnings of what will become temporal emergence. It's an idea that's being explored in physics right now, that space is an emergent quality of the universe. There's pre-spatial levels, and time also. There's pre-temporal levels, and that's what I'm talking about here, and suggesting, and those pre-temporal levels we understand with the language of mathematics. So the journey of the universe is the very simplest of relationships, the one as two, and then all the relationships of mathematics gives rise to matter via the quantum level. We'll come to the quantum level in a whole chapter later. To matter, to life, to psyche, to God. But that lowest level, we need to understand as incredibly simple. The one is two means one is also differentiated. And this really answers a lot of questions, I think, which otherwise are very hard to respond to. One is, why is maths so good for understanding physics? Many famous physicists have wrestled with this. Why? Why should it be that this particular way of understanding is so good at understanding physics, to the point where some things are very hard to express in words and can only be expressed in maths? Well, I suggest it's because the level we understand with physics has arisen from the level we understand with maths, and so they're very close. So maths is very good for understanding physics, not so good for understanding why you love your daughter. There, maths doesn't really help. But for these low levels, it really does. And there's a problem with maths of what is it that is being studied? Because one could look at it and go, well, it's just a language, we made it up. But it doesn't seem that way. It seems to be the study of something objective, something that's there, but it has no physical form. You can't find 3. You can only find 3 something. But most professional mathematicians, at least according to George Ellis, who I had a conversation with in my What is Life series, who's a very eminent mathematician, he set me off exploring exactly what I'm sharing here, because he went, look, nearly all the professional mathematicians he knows thinks that maths is studying something that exists. And it looks that way because A prime number is a number that can't be divided by anything apart from 1 in itself. And you discover them. You don't create them. 229 is a prime number. Just is. And you discover that. It's like you're discovering relationships. And that's because I think that's exactly what you're doing. And then you're left with, well, if everything that has any form whatsoever is part of the one process of becoming, which is the fundamental ontological idea that I'm so attracted to and exploring, what about maths? And here I'm going, yeah, that includes maths. That's the fundamental, that's the ontological basement of the whole emergent process. And it also explains why mathematics turns up all the time in the universe. So that's something, again, very old. The study of what got called in the past sacred geometry, that they were these mathematical relationships that appeared in the universe. The Fibonacci sequence is one. It's a sequence of numbers. You don't need to worry what it is. It leads to the golden mean. You've probably heard of that, but you don't need to worry what it is. But I can tell you, it appears in the relationships of the bones in my arm. It appears in the relationships of spiral galaxies. There's 5 platonic solids that are geometrical shapes. Only 5, can't be any more. And they appear in the universe. Plankton is one. A water molecule is one. Why? Well, I'm suggesting because this is the fundamental architecture of the universe. So of course it keeps appearing. Pythagoras famously showed that music is directly related to maths. Harmony is the relationship of how you divide the string. Why? Well, because the fundamentals of the universe are what we study with maths. And now, of course, we found we can digitize everything to create virtual realities. Why? Well, I suggest because actual reality, we're mimicking reality. Now, reality isn't a computer and it's not digital information as we have on a computer. Nothing like that. But we're mimicking the fact that that informational base is mathematical and right down to the bit, this or that, which is the fundamental in computer science, also the fundamental in the universe. That yin and yang. From that, everything. So these are the architectural principles. Galileo famously said mathematics is the language in which God has written the universe. Well, I don't think God has written the universe, but I do think it's the fundamental language for the foundational levels, as I've said before, not for the later, and that it will lay the archetypes, if you like, for time when it emerges. You can see that in the sequence of numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's like that's an archetype of what will become time. Geometry is an archetype of what will become space. There's plenty of physicists who are exploring the idea that we should see the universe like a hologram, in the sense that there is a pre-spatial level of information which appears as space. And that's, I think that's very, very plausible. Even with the evolution of matter, you can see that it's about maths, in a sense, that the fundamental element is hydrogen. It has 1 proton. You add 1 more proton, you get helium. You get a new element with different properties. Because of that, add 3, you get another element. Add 4, you get another element, until you've got all the elements that make up the physical universe. And what you're doing is adding 1 proton. And the fact that everything comes from this fundamental yin-yang is the archetype of that everything is relational. That you exist in relationship with everything else. And every system is like that. It exists in relationship with everything else. So a question that occurs for many people, understandably, is, well, what is the medium for all this information? But the key thing to get here is this is not information in a medium. 2 + 3 = 5 doesn't exist in a medium. We think like that because we put information in, say, silicon in a computer. And many forms of information exist in a medium. Sound exists as waves in the air. But light is just information. It is also a wave, but not in anything. It's mathematical. So what I am exploring here is, look, the ontological basement is information, but it's prior to mediums like matter, which we will then be able to put information in on a much more emergent level. It doesn't exist in a medium. It is the differentiation of the one into primal archetypes of relationship. So what I'm saying here is, look, this is why I want to reject anachronistic, mythic ideas of the one or the beginning. It's not God. It's not a big mind. It's not conscious. It has no intentions. It's one. And that can seem like you're losing something, but you're not. Because I am very convinced that God, the big mind, the great consciousness, exists. Just not at the beginning. Because it is rich, the richest thing in the universe. And what's at the beginning is formless, literally formless. But that means it's got the potential to take on any form, to be differentiated in any way. Not because it's got lots of little potentials in it, but just because, it's like a blank sheet of paper. You could make any shapes on it. So the ground is the potential to become anything. And like the sheet of paper, it doesn't disappear. It is everything. That formless being is everything. It's differentiated as everything. It hasn't just like in the distant past. It's here right now. It's here as you and me. And there's something, I think, which is also, it can seem cold when you lose a big mind at the beginning, but there's something also almost poetic about the idea that the ground, the undifferentiated, the formless, is the possibility for anything that has, in this case, become this marvelous universe, and which has evolved into you and me, and beyond us to the supersoul. And it means we can also consider possibilities that are current in modern physics, that there are other universes. Why not? That it is not just becoming this. It is also becoming other things, maybe quite different to this. And we can imagine also that our universe isn't the first universe in the sense that it may have been born from a previous universe. That's another idea which is being explored at the moment, and I think is quite plausible. It follows a pattern we see elsewhere, and our universe may be born from another universe, born from another universe, born from another universe. But if we're to avoid the infinite regression, which is a bit like the idea of God, it doesn't solve anything, it just goes, it just is, don't think about it. If we avoid that, and it seems much more likely that the previous universes will get simpler and simpler and simpler until the first in this genealogical sequence of universes that's led to this may be something quite other, a bit like, a egg will evolve into a human, but it's quite different. And that we may have come from prior universes, which are utterly unlike our own. We still need to look at the beginning, though, and we'll do that. We'll do that in the next chapter. My point here is we can be open to all of this, and there's things to be gained by it. One of the problems that people often wrestle with when thinking about the origins of the universe is what gets called the Goldilocks conditions sometimes, which is the conditions in our universe seem perfect for the evolution into this, and particularly for the evolution into life. And if they were very slightly different, then none of this would be possible. And that's pretty interesting. People use it to claim there must be an intelligence that's done that. Of course, that doesn't help anything, because then you've just moved how strange the conditions are perfect to how strange there's an intelligence already there that creates the conditions to be perfect. It doesn't answer anything. More plausible or interesting possibilities are, well, there's many, many universes, and this is the one where that's the true. That's possible. And then the other one, which is also plausible, I think, is that those conditions, which seem to be there very early on, are the passivity from previous universes, which means that it's more likely to move in this direction. And that's what has been evolving for who knows how long. Okay, so what have I been exploring in this chapter? I've been exploring why I want to say the one, which has become all, is one. It's not one something. It's just the undifferentiated formless. And it's the potential to become anything that has become this. And the very first level of emergence is what we study with mathematics. The one is two. Two is emerging as three. Three is emerging as four. Lines emerging as a square. Square as a cube, etc., etc. This is an old idea. You can find passages attributed to Pythagoras, who says almost exactly this. What I'm trying to do is take, as I am throughout this podbook, is take these old ideas and put them now into a modern evolutionary context. So that realm of ideas don't exist, of numbers, don't exist as some transcendental realm. They're part of the evolutionary process. They're a foundational level, the ontological basement of this process that's led from the one as two, through mathematics, to matter, to life, to psyche, to God. Okay, there's more to say, and we'll pick up on that in the next chapter. For now, I want to invite you to become conscious of the oneness of everything. That everything is also one. And that oneness, in it, it has no quality other than being. That's the quality that everything shares. That's what I've been talking about in this chapter. The next chapter is going to be a continuation of the themes that we've been exploring in this chapter, but going right back to the origin of everything. Without a creator, how do we understand that? And let me remind you that if you want to hear about the other things I'm doing, as well as this podbook, you can hear about the podcasts I'm on, the live events I do, the retreats I run, by joining my mailing list. And you can do that on timfreak.com.